Hello there, welcome to Alvarez's Diecast Customs. Today we're going to be working on this Hot Wheels Nissan Skyline. It's quite an interesting little car, this one. I'm hoping to go for sort of more of a Tokyo street racer look to it. I also felt that there was a few errors in the deco applications on this one. They seem to be a bit off-center on the side and on the rear. So we're going to address those and hopefully bring out a much better car out of it. So let's take a closer look. As you can see the side stripe there, way off center on the middle there. I've already taken the time to drill the base out on this one. I start off with a 2mm drill bit and work up to a 5mm to take the remaining piece of the head off. And I use some 5mm self-tapping screws just to fill in the gaps. Got a plastic base. We'll be removing those wheels and axles at some point. Won't be needing them. It's the interior piece, which actually has the front and rear bumpers attached to it as well, which is quite interesting. It would also make painting them in the plastic kind of paint that we need quite a lot easier. There's the rear bumper there. Quite a nice little interior. There's the window piece with the headlights attached. Bit of a scuff and a scratch on the rear there. We'll see if we can remove some of that. Seems to have some sort of rear spoiler attached to it in the plastic too. You have to pick that out in black paint at some point too. And there's the body. Not a lot to it, to be honest. See, those stripes on the side are just really off. So good candidate for a custom on this one. So we'll get on to stripping it. There's my pot of paint stripper. Just need a little bit at the bottom. We just drop it in. Pop the lid on. Give it a good shake. Ensures the body gets a good coat when you do this. And it's minimal waste as well when you use this method. So afterwards, just with a clean up, you're left with that. Run it under some hot water and then use an old toothbrush just to scrape off any of the remaining paint. Came off very easily on this one. I like to sharpen up some of the edges on the bodies with a fine diamond file. Generally, as they are from the factory, there's a few mold lines around sort of roofs and ends and things. It's always just a bit rough. You can always just give it a much better finish just by spending a few minutes just doing this. Just going around the whole body, within the windows and everything. On the front there you can see there's the bonnet's quite rough. I'm going to really smooth that down. Remove quite a bit of material on that front bit there. There it is. Coming together. There it is, just after a bit more sort of filing on the rear spoiler there and on the roof areas, on the front. Much better finish to it. Now we'll go on to some wet sanding now. I use some sanding sponges that go through a range of grits, starting from about 1,000 and then work their way up. I'll start with the coarsest one to begin with. Generally try and go in the same direction when using the coarser grits. Just go over the whole thing. Also just working out some of the filing marks that I've made. After the coarser grit, we work up to a smoother one now. This one's essentially just polishing the body now. You can really feel the difference when using the sanding sponges going over them. As you'll start polishing it up with this finer grit, the sort of texture of it smoothens out. Just get onto some degreasing. I like to do this process before I go and paint it. So I just use this flash degreaser. It's just a standard degreaser that's used for kitchen sort of utensils and things. Just use that old toothbrush and give that a good scrub. Try and get into all the creases and crevices. We don't really want any sort of grease and residue left over. Just run that under the tap, give it a good clean. There you go. Perfect. Ready for paint. Just going to clip these wheels out now. I use some side cutters. Just clip the tips off there. Won't be needing these little retainers that hold the wheels in. I don't really know why Hot Wheels use them. It's obviously just sort of while they're in the factories to prevent the wheels from flying around, just to keep them there, but the interior piece itself actually holds the wheels in. So we need to go see our friend Super Bochaco and sort out some new wheels. Give her those old ones. They weren't bad, but they're not really what we want out of this build. Oh, what are these? Nice. I'll have them. Sort of real rider looking things. It's definitely got a good sort of street racer look to them. Liking that. So I've gone ahead and painted it already. I did a coat of a Halfords primer like I usually do on my cars. And then I used the gunmetal. Thought this was quite a typical Nissan Skyline colour. Also went over the interior piece with some satin black. We can get on to doing these wheels, take a closer look at them. I just filed out the little channels there where they sit because the axles are slightly fatter. I had some issues with these. Because the axles have these knurled ends to them, you have to put so much bloody force to push them in. I actually pushed it right through the wheel and sort of popped off the end of the wheel there. Really annoyed me, that did. I have to use some glue to attach those. Really nice wheels, but these axles are just crap. Too much pressure required to push them on. So I'm using some Tamiya metallic grey just to pick out some of the little details on the chassis here. I always like to put a bit of effort into the bottom areas of the car, picking out these little details. Although you won't see them when the car's sat on a shelf, but if you ever intend to pick it up and have a look at it, you know it's there. Always just an extra level of detail that it's always worth putting into your cars. Just going to pick out the exhaust pipe on this one with some Revell aluminium silver colour. Give it a bit of a brighter look compared to the rest of the details I've done on the bottom there. That's done. I really didn't do much at all with the interior on this. I did a Google search and most of the time the interiors on these were quite understated, mostly just black throughout. And there wasn't a whole lot of detail to be put into the interior on that, so I just left it as it was. Just picking out the little keyholes on the side of the car here. They also had these little badges too. Just put those in the aluminium. And on the headlights, I'm going to just go around them with the aluminium again. I'm not actually going to paint over the front facing parts of the aluminium. I'm going to keep those clear in the hope that when you look through, you'll see the aluminium paint further in and it'll give a bit more sort of depth and detail to the headlights. So that's done. I think that works out quite well, to be honest. We're just going to add some more details to the rear here, going over the rear tail lights with some matte black. So they had a black surround on the real car, so we're just painting these in. We'll pick out the tail lights with some silver and red later on. Also on the chassis piece, I'm just painting in the sort of underskirts in black too, so they appear to be black on the car. Just trying to get it all the angles on it. You don't want to be sort of leaving the body color paint where you need it to be black, even on the internal parts around the wheels. So those little details really help to pull things together. I'm going to sort out that spoiler that's attached to the rear window here. Just use some Tamiya masking tape with a scalpel, place that on there, cut it around. Use some matte black paint on that too. Painting on quite quickly, so I really just slap it on there. Find the longer you take to paint that on, the more chances of getting brush strokes and things in it. It's going to need a couple of coats, so I'll pop it down and let that dry off. And there's the rear tail lights there. You can see I've picked out some of the details in silver already. I'll just use some Tamiya clear red just to go over them. This clear red today, not really playing bald with me. It was quite gloopy. Probably need to put a few drops of thinner into it just to make it a bit easier to work with next time. Also just picking out the indicators with some Tamiya clear orange. Now we're going to go over the detailed areas that I want to be picked out in the Citadel Known oil. Just go over the entire chassis with this piece. Just cover the entire lot. As you can see, it really starts picking out some of the finer details. Clings into the crevices here. Really picks out some of the finer details that the paint tends to cover. Also just do the rear tail lights too. Just sharpens up the red lights there. Makes them look more circular. And there's that rear window spoiler. Paint's still wet there. I make sure I remove the tape while the paint is still wet. So after a good clear coat or two, we're left with this. And there's that spoiler on the rear window. And those headlights I painted in. Now I've come up with an idea for this one. Hot Wheels cars generally don't have any sort of suspension at all. So my idea was to get a file and file out some of the interior area, as you can see on here. As these sections here where the interior holds the wheels, I filed those a little deeper, just about to the limit of where the wheels start rubbing on the body. I'm going to use some sort of firm sponge and fill in those gaps there, so that when the interior sits on the axles to hold them in, it's got the sponge there to sort of pin them down. It gives a sort of a little bit of compression, a bit of suspension. So we'll just start popping everything back together now. This is an interior piece. Helps if you put it the right way. Pop the wheels in. Still annoyed at how that wheel went through the axle. May have to look at trying to get some different sort of axle tubes for them, because the ones that they're supplied with are they just piss me off. Shouldn't require that much force to push them on. Just screw this thing back together. So, before I reveal him, let's take a look at what we started with. As I said, it was a great looking car to begin with. Just let down with the decor applications from the factory. Just way off center, all over the place. You can see the rear there's a bit of a mess with the tail lights. So yeah, a prime candidate for a good custom. So let's take a look at what we ended up with here. Yep, really happy with how this one came out. It's a bit of a test really with the suspension and those wheels that I've never really used before. As you can see, I picked out some extra details with painting the license plates on the front and rear. It's a great looking sort of gunmetal colour. Really gives a very classic sort of Nissan look to it, I find. Let's take a closer look at him. See, he rolls quite freely on those axles. You can see the compression on that sponge there for the axles works quite well. It gives it a bit of a rock too. I may have to start trying this with a lot of my customs going forward. As I said, very little detail I did to the interior there. Wasn't really required, didn't want to overdo it. Those headlights work really well with leaving the ends of the fronts of them unpainted and just painting the inside areas. Another good clear coat as well that I did on this one. As always, I do one sort of thin coat to begin with. Let that dry for an hour or so and then go over with a second coat. And there's a chassis. Always gets a good clear coat too, seals everything in. I'm very pleased with this one. Another great one to add to my collection. It's also nice to try something a bit different. I've done muscle cars mostly. I've done a sort of little import tuner. I've got a taste for these now. Stick around for a little bit. I got a bit of a bonus part where I show some extra suspension details on this car. Before that, we're going to go see our goddess Super Bojaka and see what she's got for us next time. Oh, what's that? Is that for me? Nice. Have a look at him. That's like a little Mazda Repu. Feel we could do quite a bit with this one. Definitely got some good ideas for it. Thanks for that. Always delivering the goods. So yeah, let's just take a closer look at the suspension travel on this one. See, it has a bit of a bounce to it now. It's almost reminiscent of the sort of Matchbox toy cars. They always had some good suspension in them. So yeah, very happy with this one. So, thanks for watching. Just want to say thanks for all the subscribers and the comments I've been getting recently. As always, really appreciated. So hopefully I'll see you next time. Bye for now.